Hi guys, my name is Trin and today I'm here to do my February wrap up. I read 8 books and honestly I had a really good reading month. I read more than I thought and the books that I read are all really good. I believe they're all like above 3.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, much better than January, which is a really good thing. The first book that I read in February is Genderqueer by Maya Kolbe. This is a graphic memoir and I'm so glad that I read this book because I have learned a lot about gender identity and what it's like to be non-binary. The author is non-binary and E uses the pronouns e, er. Before I read this book, I have never heard of those pronouns and I'm really glad that I got to learn a lot about them in this book. But then of course this book is also about Maya's life when E was a child and then to when E was an adult. The illustrations are amazing and I feel like Maya does a really good job showing the complication of gender identity. But not just that, there's a section where Maya talks about how what it's like to misgender someone and feeling shitty about it, but then also trying your hardest to use the correct pronouns. And I feel like that's very important because everyone makes mistakes. The important part is that you actually know that you're making a mistake and you make the conscious effort to fix it by using the correct pronouns. Overall, I really appreciate this graphic novel. I think this is very important to anyone who has trouble with their gender identity, and if you are non-binary, I feel like you would really appreciate this book. So I'm gonna give this book 5 out of 5 stars because I think this is very important to a lot of people from the LGBTQ community. The second book that I read in February is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I'm so glad I read this book in February because this was like really perfect for Valentine's Day. This novel follows Josh and Hazel. Josh is Korean American, meanwhile Hazel is white and she is a school teacher. So in the beginning of this book we learned that Josh and Hazel went to the same college. They kind of knew each other but they were never really close friends, and then I think at least 10 years later we learned that Hazel's best friend is actually Josh's sisters. They meet again and they become friends. Josh is very hesitant to be her friend because she's very different from him. Let's just say it like that, okay? She's very different from him and he's, like I said, cautious when it comes to their friendship. However, towards like the beginning of this book, his ex-girlfriend Tabitha cheats on him. He feels really shitty about it and Hazel is trying to do whatever it takes to lift up his mood. Like I said, they become friends and then they start doing double dates, so they would find each other dates. Meanwhile, they're like perfect for each other. The dates are so horrible. However, we get to see these two main characters growing closer and closer together. Now let's start with the characters. I love Josh. I love Hazel. I feel like Hazel is very supportive and I think she is a really great female character. Josh, on the other hand, he is such a cinnamon roll. In the beginning of this book, I thought that he was really uptight and I was like, I'm not sure about him. But then when I finished this book, I was like, oh my god, he's actually a sweetheart and he's a very good person. So I'm really glad that I changed my opinion on Josh because he is a really amazing person. I love the romance between these two characters. I feel like it's very natural because they both like knew each other, but then, you know, they rekindle and then they became friends and then they developed feelings for each other, and I feel like everything happened naturally. I was just rooting for them because they were just going on double dates. Meanwhile, I'm like, you guys are right there. You're perfect for each other. And I just realized that my lipstick and nails matched the cover. I'm a big fan of that. I feel like one of the critiques for this book is the ending. Honestly, I'm fine with the ending. It's expected, to be honest. I see it coming, so I was fine with it, but I know that some people don't like the ending. There's a good reason why people don't like the ending, but personally, I like this. It's just much different from other romance novels. Overall, this was really good, and I'm so glad that I read another great standalone from Christina Lauren because I really love the authors. Of course, I'm gonna give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I love this very much. I really recommend this book if you're in the mood to read a really cute romance novel because this is adorable in my opinion, and like I said, I love the characters. It's really funny and I think the romance is really great. The third book that I read in February is Ghosts of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare. Series Brandon Maureen Johnson, Kelly Link, and Robin Wasserman. If you don't know, this is a collection of 10 short novellas and they all follow brother Zachariah. He is a very important character and I'm really glad that we get to learn more about him, but then also more about about the other characters as well. I'm not going to talk a lot about this book because I have a book review and discussion for this book, and if you're interested, I will have the link down in the description box below. For now, I'm just gonna say that I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Basically, I rated each short story and then I found the average at the end. That's all I have to say for this book, and now we must move on because trust me, there are other Cassandra Clare books that I read in February. The fourth book that I read in February is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. I feel like this book is definitely out of my comfort zone because I rarely read books about fairies. So basically, this book takes place in Fairfold. That town is known for fairies and such. The two main characters are Hazel and Ben. So Hazel is our female character and Ben is her brother. Basically, in this town, or like in the forest, there is this glass coffin. A boy lies in the glass coffin. We see the people in this town going to the glass coffin, throwing a party. Some people even try to break the coffin so the boy can wake up because he's like asleep in this glass coffin. And then one day, the glass coffin is broken and Severin, the prince, has woken up. That's basically the story, and everything unfolds from there. As for the characters, I really like them. I feel like my favorite character has to be Jack because he's like a really sweet person, but people see him differently because Jack is a fae child, but he was raised in like a human household. I will say that the sibling relationship between Hazel and Ben are really amazing. It's very realistic because we see them not liking each other sometimes, but then at the end of the day they care about each other and they protect each other, so that's something I really appreciate. As for the ending, I feel like everything is really rushed. So many things happen, but it was over really quickly. So there were a lot of changes, well, not changes in this book, but more like changes happening between our characters in this town. It happened and then the book ends, so hopefully we will see the characters in The Cruel Prince because I've heard that the characters from this book will appear in the first book of that trilogy. I forgot the name. It's a shame that everything ends really quickly, and that's why I say that I really want this book to be a little bit longer. Since this is a standalone book, I really want the ending to be dragged out just a little bit, even 50 pages longer. I think that's good enough. So overall, I'm gonna give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, this is something very different for me because I don't really read books about fairies. I cannot wait to read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black because I think it's gonna be a really good one. I mean, I hope it's good. I've heard like mixed things about it, but I really hope it's gonna be amazing. The fifth book that I read in February is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Of course, I have to reread the Infernal Devices trilogy in February because I want to prepare for Chain of Gold. If you don't know, the Infernal Devices trilogy is my favorite series of all time, so I was very happy to reread all 3 books in February. This book takes place in 1878 and we follow 3 characters named Tessa, Will, and Jem. So Tessa is a girl from America. A girl from America, wow, that's how I label her right now, I guess. But anyway, she's from America, and in the beginning of this book we see her going to London and she gets kidnapped by the enemies. They force her to shapeshift, so she has this really rare ability to shapeshift into other people. Luckily, she is rescued by the Shadowhunters, Will, Jem, and other people from the Institute. She just learns about the Shadowhunter world, and then of course we get to see the main villain and how he really wants Tessa because she is a rare breed of species in this series. If you don't know, I already have a book review and discussion for this book. It was filmed back in 2018, so 2 years ago, and back then I gave that book 3 out of 5 stars. But when I reread this book a month ago, I loved it more than I thought, so I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, which is completely different than 2 years ago. So that was really surprising to me because I thought that I was gonna give this book maybe like a 4 out of 5 or like a 3 out of 5, but I never expected to give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I already have a video for this, so I will have that video linked down in the description box below. The sixth book that I read in February is Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book of the Infernal Devices trilogy, and of course I finished it. I have a book review and discussion for this book. It was filmed 2 years ago when I reread it for the second time. I will also have that video linked down in the description box below. I will say that when I read this book, it's like also around a time where a lot of people I know read the trilogy and they say that this book was fucking boring. So I was really hurt, and then when I read this book I was like, oh my god, it is kind of boring. There isn't a lot of fighting scenes or like action scenes. We have like 1 or 2 at most, but other than that, this book really focuses on our characters, but not just at the side characters as well. That's why 2 years ago I really loved this book, because I was just like, holy shit, this is really different, because we really focus on the characters and like the main characters and the problem and also the villain, but in a way he's not in this book at all. So we see the people connecting to the villain, but we don't see the villain himself. I still think that is a really smart move, or like a really brave move from Cassie's I guess from Cassie Clare, because we get to see how this villain is such a big threat. He controls the people around him, and even our main characters are like frantic. They're trying to find out what's going on with him, but they cannot really find a lot of answers. I think that's why it's different, and I really like that move, you know, how the main villain is not in this book and yet we get to see his influence on the other characters. I think that's really cool. But still, this book is a little bit boring, but you know, I love it. I'm just being biased, to be honest. What's really different is that 2 years ago, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. But now, I'm going to give this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't have the heart to bring it down to a 4, okay? 4.5 is me being generous. So yes, I still love this book, even though it was a little bit boring. The 7th book that I read in February is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I'm so glad that I read this book in February, because it's one of the best books I've ever read, or like one of the best memoirs I've ever read. Michelle Obama is the wife of Barack Obama, and he was the 44th president of the United States. This book really follows Michelle Obama back when she was like a child to when she was the first lady of the United States. I really appreciate her going in depth with her childhood and like the family members, because she's like showing us what it was like to be a young black woman in Chicago like back in the days. But not just that, we see her going to Princeton University. We get to see her going to Harvard Law School. We get to see her doing so many amazing things, and then of course eventually she becomes the first lady of the United States. The writing is immaculate. Michelle Obama is such a talented storyteller, because damn, I was feeling so many emotions when I was reading this book. I cry a lot when she talks about the deaths of her father and her college friend. But then the chapter after that, I believe that's when Barack Obama proposes to Michelle Obama, and I was crying. So I cried like in 3 different chapters. Speaking of Barack Obama, let's talk about the fact that their love is so pure. They love each other, they love their kids. Michelle really puts her 2 daughters before everything, especially when they're all living at the White House. The ending is so emotional. I don't even want to tell you, because of course this book ends around the time when Obama's 2nd term ends, and that's when Trump becomes president, and it's just like really dark. If you were there, you know, back in 2016, it was so dark. I remember that because I was a freshman in college, and it was like my first time to vote. So excited to make a difference, but it did not go in my favor. And yeah, it's just I'm speechless now, to be honest. I listened to this book on audiobook. That is the way to go, because it is narrated by Michelle Obama. It's great, okay? It's great hearing her talk about her childhood and her love for Barack Obama and what it's like to be the first lady. Everything about this book is phenomenal, okay? I'm gonna give this book 5 out of 5 stars because it deserves 5 out of 5 stars. I recommend this book to everyone, so if you want to read it, oh my god, please do it. It's so freaking good. The last book that I read in February is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is the last and final book of the Infernal Devices trilogy, and I was so happy when I finished this book because that was like my whole goal. I really want to finish all 3 books in February. So of course I have a book review discussion for this book. It was from 2 years ago. It's still a good video because, you know, I talk about this book and I cry at the end, so you might as well watch it. Honestly, I feel like with this 3rd reread, I really think that this is my favorite book from the trilogy overall. The epilogue always kills me. It was really good. I'm so glad I finished the entire trilogy because, you know, I was really ready for Chain of Ghosts. You'll see me talk about that book in my March wrap up because I did finish that book last week and it was phenomenal. This book, of course, chef's kiss, okay? Chef's kiss. And yes, I love it the first time I read this book. I love it the second time I read this book, and I love it even more with this 3rd reread. I'm gonna give this book 5 out of 5 stars because, you know, it deserves 5 out of 5 stars in my opinion. It was that good. This book is that bitch, okay? She gives you everything you want, okay? Like, if you want to cry, read this book. So those are all of the books that I read in February. I really enjoy everything, especially Becoming by Michelle Obama. Hopefully in March I will read some amazing books as well. Right now I have only finished 2 books and it's like mid-March. My goal is to read at least 5 books in March, okay? I'm pretty busy like every freaking day, which is so annoying, but I still want to put effort into my reading month, I guess. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye!